Guys, this is Rachel from Cypress Textiles, and today we're going to make the Birch square for the Vibrant Vintage Crochet Along Reboot 2018. So let's get started. We're going to make a slip knot and put it on our hook and chain 3. Okay, slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook to make a ring. And then go straight into a beginning DC, which is a single crochet and a chain 1. So go into that center ring there, single crochet and chain 1. And then we're going to chain 3 for our corner. Make 2 DC. And that is our repeat, chain 3, so 2 I'm finished DC. With this round. I have my 2 DC, chain 3, so we're gonna make like a tiny granny square center here. The last stitch on my hook is gonna be a double crochet so that I can join into my beginning DC with a slip stitch. So you're gonna find that chain of your beginning DC and make sure that you leave your 3 chains for your corner. And when you make your slip stitch, just make sure you don't tighten up on it, because that's supposed to look like these V's that are on top of the other DC stitches. So it looks a lot like a regular DC. All right, in our chain space, we're gonna start our next round with a beginning DC again. So single crochet and chain 1. And then this is a beginning 3 DC cluster. So we make our beginning DC first, and then we're gonna do a 2 DC cluster. So yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and draw the yarn through 2 loops on the hook, and then repeat that step again so that you're gonna have 3 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and draw the yarn through all 3 loops. Okay, then we're going to chain 3. And now we're gonna make a full 3 DC cluster. This is just a regular 3 DC cluster. So we're gonna do the same process that we did for the 2 DC cluster, but just do it 3 times. It's like making a double crochet, but you leave a loop on your hook instead of working the last step of the double crochet. So now I've got 4 loops on my hook there, the leading loop, and then 3 loops of our cluster. Draw the yarn through all 4 loops, and that is our corner. So now I'm going to chain 5 and make my corner again. So I'll do 3 DC cluster, and chain 3, 3 DC cluster. Okay, and then I'm going to chain 5 in the center and make my corner again, and that's our repeat. So when I come back around to join, I'm going to have my chain 5 on the hook ready to join. Alrighty, so I'm at the beginning of the round now with my chain 5 on the hook, and I'm going to join into my cluster. So I'm going to put all 3 loops of the cluster back on the hook and then make my slip stitch to join. All right, and in the next chain space for the corner, we're going to make some clusters again. So I'm going to make a beginning DC and a 2 DC cluster, and that's going to be my beginning 3 DC cluster, like that. And then chain 2, make a 3 DC cluster, chain 2, and another 3 DC cluster for the corner. Okay, and then chain 2 in our last 3 DC cluster. All right, so I've got 4 3 DC clusters with chain 2 spaces in between. And the next thing that we're going to do is chain 2 and make a single crochet in this chain 5 space. Then chain 2 again and make our 3 DC cluster in the next corner. And that's going to be our repeat. Once I'm done with this 3 DC cluster, that's our repeat. Okay, so I chain 2, and I'm going to make 3d6 cluster chain 2 to finish my corner, and then chain 2 and single crochet in the chain 5 space, chain 2 and 3d6
Okay, I'm at the
cluster.
beginning of my round now with a chain 2 on my hook, ready to join. So I'll join into this cluster by, like I said, inserting my hook through all 3 loops of the cluster and then making a slip stitch. Okay, in the next chain space, we're going to make a petal. So the petal is made of single crochet, chain 1, and then 3 double crochet, and then a chain 1 and a single. Okay, and that's my little petal. So I'll go ahead and make another petal in these next 2 chain spaces. Okay, now I have 3 petals here, and I'll jump straight into making a few singles across this side here. I'll make a single crochet in the chain space, a single in my single, and a single in the chain space again. Okay, and that's at the beginning of my round now, and I'm going to join with the slip stitch in the first single crochet of my round, and then I'm going to release the loop from my hook. Now we're going to work behind these petals so that they stick up, and so I'm going to insert my hook back to front through that single crochet that we just joined in, grab my loop, and bring my loop to the back. So first I'm going to make 3 chains, and then we skipped over this cluster when we did between our petals. So what I'm going to do is very carefully bring my hook through, and then I'm going to use the pointy part of my hook to dig down into that cluster. So we're going to join in the top of the cluster that we skipped, but it's a little difficult to get into that cluster since we didn't make any chains over it or anything. So I'm going to show you again. I'm going to bring my hook between the petals, but not in the cluster. So there's the top of the cluster right here. So I'm above that, between the petals. And then I'm going to use the pointy part of my hook to go and scoop down into the top of that cluster. So now I'm ready to work into it with a single crochet. Chain 3. And then the next cluster that we skipped, I'll bring my hook through above the cluster but between the petals and use the pointy part of my hook to go back down through the top of that cluster. So now I'm working into it with a single crochet, and then chain 3. And this cluster over here that we skipped when we went into our singles for the side, we're going to work into that one too. Okay, bring your hook through, find the top of that cluster, and make a single in it. Okay, and now we're going to work on the front again. So we've got those 3 chain spaces, each one at the back of each petal. So each chain space is behind a petal. Okay, and these 3 single crochets that you see here, we're going to work into them with a single crochet. All right, and now with our first cluster, just work into the top with a single crochet. Okay, all right, so in the very beginning, just chain 3, single crochet into the cluster from the back, chain 3, single crochet in the next cluster, same thing, chain 3 and single crochet, and then kind of come to the front again to work these 3 singles into the singles on the side. And then you start your repeat again. At the beginning of my round, I have my 3 single crochets worked into with singles, and I need to make the first single of my round because we jump straight into making chains. So go ahead into your first cluster of your round, make your single, and then you can just jump straight into working into
your chain space. You don't need to join into it or anything, because once you work into this chain space, it's like as if the round is joined anyway. So I've got my final single on the hook there. So into this chain space, we're going to make 3 double crochets. So I started with the beginning DC. I've got a single crochet and a chain 1, and then I'll make 2 more doubles. Okay, now we're at our corner chain space. So in the corner, I'll do 3 doubles, a chain 3, and 3 doubles. Okay, we'll skip over the single crochet before and after our corner, and we'll do 3 DC in the next chain space. So remember, these are kind of getting worked behind our petals because they're in those chain spaces. So our petals look like that, but we're working behind them. So I'm kind of folding them forward so you can't see them. Okay, so now I've got my 3 double crochets here, and I'm gonna need to work into, in order to get my stitch count correct, I've got 5 single crochets here. So work into your single with a double crochet, and then 3 DC worked over the next 3 singles. Okay, and then work into this single crochet that you have in your cluster there with a double crochet. Okay, so now we're at this point again with 3 DC. And that's our repeat. So we'll just jump straight into skipping the single crochet there and going into our corner. Okay, I'm finished with my round now, and I've gone ahead and joined it to my first beginning DC there. So I wanted to kind of back up and show you what this round looks like when you have the petals pressed back. So this is kind of what you're looking at when you have this DC round kind of hiding behind the petals. And I'll just show you a close-up of how each side looks like. So hopefully that makes it a little more clear. Our final round is just our single crochet round. So in the next stitch, not the joining stitch, we're going to start with a single crochet, and I'm just going to make singles in all the stitches around, and then 5 single crochet in the corner. Alrighty, so that's the end of our birch square. I've gone ahead and joined the round with a slip stitch in the first single crochet, and I'm going to bury my tail now. So back to front, insert the hook through both loops of the stitch to the left of the joining stitch, hook the tail and bring it to the back. Now your slip stitch is laying flat over your single crochet so it blends in. Now in the stitch to the right of the joining stitch, go back to front through the back loop only, grab that tail and bring it to the back. And now in all of the subsequent stitches, go from back to front through back loop only and bring your tail to the back. All right, so that is our birch square, and I've used the Shape Just Soft Fun Aquarel so that it gives it that birch bark look to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this square, and I'll see you for the next one. Happy crafting, y'all.